Coming up on the Roundup, Hepburn Shire's CEO resigns. Tributes flow after the passing of one of the sector's long-serving community champions. A win in the Blue Mountains over a contentious data centre proposal. A boundary change set to take effect for 2 New South Wales councils. Deadlines approach for tough budget decisions in Queensland. The South Australian Council challenging a tribunal ruling on CEO pay. And the councillor who took an idea from Melbourne's growth corridor to a TEDx stage in Houston. Hello, I'm Chris Eddy. This is the Local Government News Roundup for Tuesday the 30th of June. And yes, Christine Stowe, a Whittlesea councillor, will be my guest a little later in the podcast today. She's just back from Houston, Texas. The podcast is brought to you by the VLGA, the national broadcaster on all things local government, Symphony 3 simple, connected customer experiences, and Rath Engineering Development, smarter local government systems built from real on-the-ground experience. We start today with the resignation of Hepburn Shire Council CEO Bradley Thomas. He'll be leaving the organisation on the 21st of August. Mr Thomas has been with the council since 2019 and served as its CEO since 2021. He was reappointed on a new contract by the council last year. Mayor Councillor Tony Clark has thanked Mr Thomas for his leadership, including his work on the council's financial sustainability program. The council says it will announce interim CEO arrangements and a recruitment timeline in the coming weeks. Mr Thomas has not revealed any future career plans beyond leaving Hepburn Shire in August. His tenure with the council has not been without difficulty. In March, a community member was fined and placed on a good behaviour bond in the Ballarat Magistrates Court after throwing coffee at Mr Thomas, a case the council used to publicly advocate for stronger workplace protections for local government staff and elected officials. That same month, Mr Thomas and Councillor Don Henderson were served with private criminal charges initiated by local businessman David Penman, not by Victoria Police or any public prosecutorial authority. The council expressed full support for both men and stated it would uphold any outcome handed down by the courts. Unlike Councillor Henderson, Mr Thomas was not required to stand down during that process and continued in his role throughout. The private prosecution is ongoing and due back in court in August. In more CEO news, Pyrenees Shire Council has appointed former Central Goldfields and current Baw Shire interim CEO Sally Jones for a period of up to 6 months. She succeeds retiring CEO Jim Nolan, who finishes on the 10th of July. Council Director Douglas Gowans will step up as acting CEO until Ms Jones arrives on the 3rd of August. The council says it will initiate a rigorous recruitment process for a permanent chief executive in the coming weeks. Very sad news now. Tributes are flowing after the passing of Chris Meadows-Taylor, a dedicated local government servant, a former long-serving councillor and 6-time mayor of Central Goldfields Shire Council. First elected in 2005, Chris served 12 years on council, including a remarkable return after the Shire's 2017 dismissal and period of administration. He concluded his 6th term as mayor in November 2022. Current Central Goldfields Mayor Ben Green praised Mr Meadows-Taylor as a true gentleman and a tireless champion for community advocacy. He was a driving force behind the Victorian Goldfields World Heritage Listing bid and was awarded the Mayor Emeritus honour by the MAV. I had the personal pleasure of working with Chris over the years and always found him to be a decent and thoughtful person, strongly dedicated to his community. My sincere condolences to his family, friends and all who served alongside him. Vale, Chris Meadows-Taylor. Now let's go to New South Wales, where Blue Mountains City Council has welcomed the withdrawal of a contentious data centre proposal for Barton Street in Katoomba. Mayor Mark Greenhill stated the intensive development was the wrong proposal for the location, citing significant water and power demands alongside risks to local amenity and its proximity to residential homes and a public school. Warrumbungle Shire Council and New South Wales Police have seized more than $100,000 worth of illegal tobacco products in a joint operation in Coonabarabran. Officers searched a Dalgarno Street business last week, allegedly finding cigarettes, vapes, loose chop tobacco, nicotine pouches and drug paraphernalia. An emergency cease-use order has been issued with charges expected. The New South Wales Electoral Commission has set the 22nd of August as the date for a by-election at Kiama Municipal Council, following the resignation of Councillor Mike Keynes earlier this month. Mr Keynes, who was elected as an independent in 2024, stood down earlier this month for personal reasons. Nominations close on the 22nd of July. Cabonne Council says a boundary change bringing North Yeovale into the Cabonne local government area is now final, taking effect from the 1st of July. The move follows joint work with Dubbo Regional Council and community consultation. Cabonne's Mayor Kevin Beattie said the change was a positive, community-driven outcome, while Dubbo Mayor Josh Black described it as a decision that made sense for everyone. A funding agreement covers local projects, including a shared pathway and new signage. And Gilgandra Shire Council has backed away from a proposal to introduce new household rubbish and green waste disposal fees for the upcoming financial year. Following a 6-week community consultation that drew over 100 formal submissions, Council has voted down the user pay charges, citing local cost of living concerns. However, a new $5 fee per timber pallet has been adopted. The Council is now finalising its 10-year waste strategy ahead of a broader review to inform its 2027-28 budget. In Queensland news this morning, North Burnett Regional Council will vote tonight on a proposed 12.5% average rates increase as part of its budget. The increase has been scaled back from an initial 17% forecast due to community cost of living pressures. Even so, the council anticipates a $9.31 million operating loss for the financial year. More from the Cairns Post on that. Redland City Council Acting Mayor Julie Talty says her council is confronting difficult choices ahead of its special budget meeting today. Councillor Talty says rising core costs have prompted reviews into service frequencies and potential user pays models, though essential infrastructure remains prioritised. The council also claims to have found millions of dollars in efficiencies, identified following an external operational review. Two Sunshine Coast councillors say they'll donate their 3.25% pay rises to local community and charity groups after the council handed down a tough budget featuring higher rates and cuts. Christian Dixon says he'll redirect his increase to the Bloom Kill Cancer Care and the Sunshine Coast Animal Refuge organisations. Taylor Bunnarg says his first donation will be $1,300 to Maroochy Little Athletics. More from Sunshine Coast News. And Noosa Shire is cracking down on illegal camping across local hotspots. Working with Queensland Police, recent early morning patrols yielded 37 infringement notices and 1 caution. Council officials say the operations focus strictly on visitors misusing public spaces rather than individuals experiencing homelessness. Burnside Council in South Australia is appealing a decision by the State Remuneration Tribunal that slashed its chief executive's maximum allowable salary to roughly $321,000. The Advertiser reported that the council's submission highlights complex governance challenges, including extensive statutory and legal reviews driven by highly engaged residents, alongside a history of internal elected member friction. The tribunal's previous indexing decision was tied to the council falling just short of a $56 million operating income threshold following a pandemic-era rates freeze. In WA, the Shire of Derby West Kimberley is demanding an immediate review of Department of Justice court processes across the region. Shire President Peter McCumsty says extensive travel distances and severe delays are creating unsustainable barriers for residents and families trying to meet legal obligations. The Shire is calling for urgent interim funding to resolve a backlog ahead of a wider structural review to ensure a fairer, more accessible regional justice system. The town of Port Hedland will remove the historically significant Black Rock Stakes sculpture after inspections found the artwork has become an unacceptable safety risk. Councillors voted to dismantle it, with Mayor Jacinta Berend saying public safety must come first while the town works to preserve local history. The sculpture commemorates the Black Rock Stakes wheelbarrow race held from 1971 to 2010, and the town is asking the community for help to identify the original artist. To the UK next, and the Chief Executive of Norfolk County Council, Tom McCabe, has resigned after reportedly being placed in an untenable position by council leadership. His decision follows a directive from the newly elected Reform UK administration to halt work on a proposed local government reorganisation. BBC News reported the authority is also launching a legal challenge against government plans to replace the council with 3 unitary authorities next year. A London local government authority is facing scrutiny over changes to its flag-flying protocols. Yahoo News reported that Enfield Council's new administration has defended its decision not to fly the Pride flag outside its civic centre this month. The leadership said that its revised policy restricts standard displays to traditional civic and national flags. Opposition councillors have criticised the move, calling it a slap in the face to the LGBT community. And a Leicestershire Council councillor has apologised after publicly criticising a staff member for wearing a trans flag-coloured lanyard. A member conduct panel determined the social media post negatively impacted staff and council reputation, prompting an unreserved apology from the cabinet member. BBC News has more on that story. In the US, the state of California has launched what its government says is the nation's first public dashboard tracking AI-related job losses. The California AI Unemployment Tracker cross-references unemployment insurance claims with data on how exposed each occupation is to artificial intelligence, and it will be updated monthly. CBS News reports that initial findings show no mass displacement, though elevated claims have been flagged among college-educated workers in high-exposure roles, particularly in the San Francisco Bay Area. And Canada's Federation of Municipalities has launched a new defence task force, marking the first time the organisation has formally engaged with national defence policy. The task force is designed to strengthen collaboration between local governments and the federal government as Canada significantly increases its military spending. Co-chair, Councillor Will Cole-Hamilton from Comox, British Columbia, said the FCM had not previously had a single line of policy or formal relationship with the Department of National Defence. And that's our news roundup for today. There's much more on our website, including our weekly poll. We're asking, should political donations to council election candidates be banned? It's currently running at 80% yes, 10% no, and some people are a bit unsure. That poll will be closing later today, so jump on the site at lgnewsroundup.com to have your say. We'll bring you the final results in the next day or so. Now, it's a special edition of the Roundup today because I have a special guest with me, Councillor Christine Stowe, who represents North Ward at the City of Whittlesea in Melbourne, who's talking to me about her TEDx experience. She's just back from Houston, Texas, and she now hopes decision makers will be inspired by her message. My guest on the Local Government News Roundup today is Councillor Christine Stowe from the City of Whittlesea in Melbourne. Christine, lovely to have you on the podcast. How are you?
Thank you for having me.
No, good to have you here. You're a councillor of a fairly long standing now. Just tell us a bit about your Whittlesea background, because you've been a councillor, then not, and then again, correct?
That's right. So I've been involved in politics for 20 years now, since 2006, when some people asked me to stand in the state election. And that's when I began. But I don't see myself as a politician, if you like. I stood because I was standing for, I've got a daughter with disabilities, and I was standing for people with disabilities and carers at that time at the forefront of what is now NDIS. So when people say that minor parties can't have any impact, we're at the forefront of rolling in NDIS. So look where that is now.
Indeed. So you ran obviously unsuccessfully at that point for state government. So at what point did you decide local government might be a place you could have some impact?
I vowed and declared after that I'd never ever do it again.
Is that right?
When people asked me in 2012 to stand in the local government for City of Whittlesea, so I stood. At that time, I'd become a single parent carer, and I never imagined I'd get elected. Had really limited resources and no NDIS to do campaigning, and I ended up getting elected on account back in 2014. 2014 to 2016, I was on council, and during that time, I was able to get a special school and a cafe for people with disabilities set up in the local area, so I was very proud of that.
So that was a direct result of your advocacy on the council?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And then 2016 onwards, did you not stand or did you not get re-elected?
I didn't get re-elected in 2016,
Mm.
and then City of Whittlesea councillors were dismissed in 2020, so there was that hiatus, and then I stood again in November 2024. So I'm very proud to be elected again and here to represent my community. And that's my focus, is to be the best councillor that I can.
Excellent. So you said you vowed back in the mid 2000s that you wouldn't run for state again. Is that still the case?
No, I wouldn't run. I wouldn't get involved in politics ever again. And then
Yeah.
somebody caught me on a weak moment.
Yeah. So you see local council as politics in the broader scheme of things?
Yeah, it's the politics that are closest to the community.
Yeah. So one of the reasons we wanted to catch up is you've just been to Texas, where you've delivered a TEDx talk, and your experience with your daughter's condition, which I believe is a fairly rare condition, has, I guess, coloured your thinking and given you some thoughts that you wanted to share on a broader audience.
Houston, Texas, we have a
Yeah.
problem.
Was it a
So
problem?
no, it
No?
wasn't. Once I set my mind to it, like dream, decide, do. Once I set my mind to it, I got myself to Texas. So from a broad perspective, I think that I like to look at things from a helicopter perspective. And then I had my daughter and found out there was something wrong with her. And I had to think differently about how I go about things. I think I've got skills and abilities to bring to the table. My background was in forensic science and then medical sales. So I had that to bring to the table, and then suddenly thrown into a world of disability. So I like to think that I think in black and white, squares and stripes,
Mm,
because of my background in science, but then I have a creative side that I've had to bring to the table because of my daughter's disabilities. And yes, it is a very rare condition she has. It's called Schwartz-Jampel syndrome. So she's very stiff muscles. So it presents like cerebral palsy for all intents and purposes.
right.
She's 25. She doesn't walk or talk, and she's nil by mouth. So I have to anticipate all of her needs.
At what age did you discover this condition?
3 months, we started on I call it the merry-go-round that I couldn't get off,
Yeah.
of being sent to pediatricians and allied health professionals to work out what was going wrong with her.
So, what was the central theme or message that you felt came out of all of that that you wanted to share on the TEDx stage?
So for a period of time as well, looking after my daughter, but given that I've been applying for grants for over 20 years now for disability support groups, all that sort of thing, and I started helping other people apply for grants or other organizations. And what I saw was people ask for money, they ask for a grant when it's not necessarily a grant that they need. It's an action plan. So from that came my different perspective. If we could ask different questions, can we get to the outcome that we want?
So, part of the argument you're putting is that scaling outdated systems don't fix them, they just make the problems bigger. What do you mean by that?
So that's exactly what I'm saying. So if we look at a problem, um, as I say with grants, somebody came to me, looking for money to support women victims of domestic violence. And I said, well, do you really need money? She said, yeah, I need money. And so I mapped out the steps that she needed to take. At the end of the day, she didn't actually need money. She needed to take the steps. So what I see is that we see a problem, homelessness, for example. Could we ask a different question? I don't know if we can, but could
Yeah.
we ask a different question about homelessness that fixes the problem? I don't know what the fix to the problem is. It might be that we, I don't know, build a gigantic big house, or it might be that we look at jobs, but could we ask a different question to get to the outcome?
Yeah.
If we keep throwing money, if we keep putting more money into things, and I don't think money's always the answer, then if we ask a different question, can we get to an outcome that we can accept?
Tell me about the TEDx experience. At what point did you decide that this was something you wanted to do? How did that come about?
So, how did it come about? I decided I had a message to give, a message to send that, I've had to do things differently to work around my daughter's care. I have something to bring to the table, but I had to think differently to be able to bring that to the table, to get elected to councils, to stand in elections. I have to think differently than maybe what other people do, because I don't see many people who are carers or on council or standing in elections. So I've had to think differently. So I brought that lens to what I was looking at to speak about TEDx. Originally, we were going to talk about being a carer, but that's But it was more about thinking differently to get
Yeah.
there, thinking
Yeah.
differently to stand, thinking differently. And how can I bring that to the wider community, the carers, people with disability, and then the wider community, education, health?
Yeah. It's not as easy as just saying, "Hey, I've got something to talk about. Can I get on your next TEDx?" Though, is it? There's a process to go through. Can you walk us through that?
Yes, it is a process. So I joined a TEDx community, and so they were sending out all the TEDx talks coming up. So I started looking at doing TEDx back in 2020, and I made a few applications, and then I made an absolute commitment in December last year that this is what I was going to do. So then I applied for every TEDx that came across my table. So, and there were 53 people that applied for this TEDx. They chose 155 semi-finalists, and then I got down to the last 36. So I think that I had something to say. I had something important to say.
Yeah. So, are there 36 people that then spoke at that particular TEDx event? Is that?
That's right. So
Yeah.
there's different TEDx's. So there's TEDx's here in Australia, and depends on the TEDx licensee how they want to run it. The one in Houston, he runs them every 3 months, and
Right.
he had 6 rounds of 6 people all day.
Right. Right.
It was a
Okay.
great atmosphere, like all these people that have something really important to say. And I was thinking about what was different about what I had to say. And people often think with TEDx, well, I've got a story to tell. I want to tell my story. If I was just talking about, I've got a story about my daughter, then that wouldn't really fly. But what you really need to do is figure out a deeply personal experience. What are the assumptions underlying that bring you to that? And then what's the difference or what's the change? So that's
Mm.
what brings together a TEDx. It's different to just presenting a keynote. It's something deeply personal that can observe something that could be a cross section of assumptions that can change people's thinking.
Do you have to submit a script of what you're going to say? Is it very tightly managed, or have you got some leeway in how you present your message?
So, yes, for all the TEDx's that I applied for, you have to present what your idea is, an outline of your idea. And then the next step is to present or provide your actual script. So, yes, I had to provide
Yeah.
the script. I
Yeah.
had to provide a video of me doing the script.
Right.
And then I had to, actually present it. So I was presented it 3 times in Houston because I had audio issues. So by the third time, nailed it.
With an audience?
Yes, so it was a live audience. Yeah, and then it'll be loaded up to YouTube.
What was the response like from the audience and people you spoke to before and after your presentation?
I was blown away by the response because I'd flown in and there was only 2 out of 36, 2 international speakers.
Oh.
So I'd flown in, I didn't have any cheer squad or anything like that. So after the talk, and I went out the front to see the people coming out, and there were so many people that wanted to come up to me and talk to me. So I was really blown away by the message. It landed with people, and the part that landed most was the story about my daughter. So the personal bit was what landed the most. People want to talk to me. They said, I know a caregiver. They call it caregiver over there. I know somebody that this resonated with. So I was really, really blown away positively.
Mm.
It's a great experience.
So now that you've put these ideas on an international stage and it's yet to come out, but that's not too far away as I understand it, what would you like to see happen next as a result of it?
I'd like to see all decision makers take a step back and think, how can we think differently? One of the things that changed the way I think was attending the ABCD, the Asset Based Community Development presentation back in 2015 here in Melbourne. And
Hmm.
that made me think differently about how can we build stronger communities? How can we engage the community? So I'd like to think that we engage communities more. How can we think more about building our communities stronger than trying to fix everything?
Is anything about this experience perhaps changed the way that you approach or think about your role as a local councillor?
I want to keep spreading the message of let's think differently. How can we take that step back? So I hope that around the table, my fellow councillors, and I think from some of the conversations that we've been having, we're thinking about how can we think differently about some of the decisions that are in front of us.
Excellent. All right. Well, congratulations. I think it's pretty amazing that you've just decided you wanted to do this. And the next thing, virtually, you're on the stage in Houston, and we're looking forward to seeing it. And I hope you'll let us know when it's available for everyone to watch.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Christine. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I've been talking to Councillor Christine Stowe from the city of Whittlesea in Melbourne about her recent experience in delivering a TEDx talk. Now, while you can't watch that TEDx talk just yet, there is a teaser that is online, and I've placed a link to that in our show notes if you'd like to get a sneak peek. Christine Stowe there, my guest on the Local Government News Roundup for Tuesday the 30th of June 2026. Head to lgnewsroundup.com for more details on any of the stories that you've heard on today's show. The podcast is brought to you by the Victorian Local Governance Association with support from Symphony 3 and Rath Engineering Development. We record in the city of Greater Geelong, Victoria, on the land of the Wadawurrung people of the Kulin Nation. I hope you found something of interest in today's podcast and that you'll join us again. Until next time, thanks for listening and bye for now. Support for the Local Government News Roundup comes from Rath Engineering Development, smarter systems for local government, like Red GMS, helping councils manage gravel pits and projects, track quality, test results, blending options and haulage, and know the true cost per tonne from day one. Rath Engineering Development can give you a one-off report that uses your existing pit data to pinpoint the best gravel sources for your next resheeting program or disaster restoration works, saving your council time and money. For local government systems built from real on-the-ground experience, talk to the team at Rath Engineering Development. Head to rathed.com.au to find out more.